Will you challenge Jumpluff into Lapras? This really is a good old game of chicken, or guess the moveset if you will. Our feature battler probably hoping the opponent doesn't have Ice Beam. Likewise, our opponent probably hoping we haven't got Energy Ball, but right off the bat, able to land the Energy Ball through 2 Protect Shield, rocking bulky Lapras deep into the red health range. Lapras returns fire with the Skull Bash. Jumpluff shrugs off the damage, looks to overfarm before firing off the acrobatics, looking to move Lapras from the field of play. Down goes Lapras. The opponent sends out a Zoom Roll. Jumpluff, still not done. Gonna look to land this Energy Ball and put a very solid dent in a Zoom Roll's never-ending HP. Welcome back to the channel. Season 24 is just around the corner. It is getting underway in less than a week, and that means that the GOAT PvPoke has updated his rankings. Firstly, shout out to PvPoke. That guy really does do God's work. This little cotton ball, aka Shadow Jumpluff, is currently occupying the number 10 spot in the Season 23 rankings. As recently as last season, it was all the way ranked at number 1. The recommended moveset was a full flying moveset of Aerial Ace and Acrobatics respectively. Fast forward to Season 24, this Pokemon really has fallen from grace, falling a whopping 213 places to 223rd. If you was someone that invested a huge amount of resources into powering up a Shadow Jumpluff for the Great League, don't worry, this Pokemon certainly isn't kicked out of the meta. Firstly, let's talk about how PvPoke do their simulations. A lot of Jumpluff's wins were coming in bait dependent matchups. The simulations were taking into account that the Aerial Ace got shielded and you was able to land that nuke of acrobatics. Unfortunately, in battling it isn't quite that simple. So moving forward, for Season 24, what you need to do is what today's featured battler, Uncle Agastine's doing. Get rid of that god-awful move, Aerial Ace, aka Aerial Arse, and TM yourself onto Energy Ball. Like this, your opponent has 2 choices. Give up that Protect Shield or take monstrous damage from one of them nukes. As you can see on the screen, today's featured battler is already at Legend rank, so essentially doesn't really care about his elo. Would I recommend this team? Well, yes and no. We've actually got 3 sets today, 2 sets from Uncle Agastine and 1 set with me using his team. Yes, I'd recommend this team as I think all 3 of these Shadow Pokemon are very powerful in their own right. But it doesn't take a genius to work out. We have got one huge glaring weakness in team building. We are triple weak to rock. Bastiodon is essentially our dad, and if you see Carbink, he's like that bloody uncle you hate, but you always end up seeing anyway. So what I'm trying to say is if you see a rock type, you're essentially cooked. However, all that being said, the talking's been done and this intro really has gone on for far too long. So without any further ado, let's get into the battles. And in game 1, right off the bat, we found ourselves yet another core breaker. This, of course, isn't a rock type. We're not exactly particularly good into electric types either. However, this is definitely one advantage of an Energy Ball over a full flying moveset, meaning you can hit for heavy neutral damage. Even with a buffed up defense, the Energy Ball able to get the opponent below the half health range. Can Jumpluff hang on from the incoming parabolic charge? Heartbreakingly we cannot. We send out Lapras, the opponent aggressively gives up switch, sending out Toadscrawl, and oh hello trainer, meet the Kentucky Fried Chicken bird of death in its glorious shadow form. Talonflame tanks the wrap, looks for the Incinerate farm down, which we're able to get, leaving at 100 energy. Bellybolt is still alive, but they've already took quite a lot of chip damage. Back out comes Bellybolt. Talonflame fires off the Fly. Fly isn't quite lethal, but Talonflame's able to Incinerate farm down afterwards. Out comes Dusclops. Dusclops going to get greeted with the Fly. Fly forces the opponent's final Protect Shield, and we see the pivot back into Lapras. Lapras wastes no time, goes straight for the Sparkling Aria. Sparkling Aria instantly puts them below the half health range, and this game looks signed, sealed, and delivered. Lapras still with 2 Protect Shields, 2 high behind. The only lose con for Uncle Agastine is him essentially having a heart attack at this point. The opponent playing it out to the very bitter end. Lapras invests the Protect Shield, blocking up the next Shadow Punch. Not that it needed to, but sometimes better to be safe than sorry. We fire off the first Sparkling Aria, forcing the opponent's final Protect Shield. The next Sparkling Aria is locked and loaded, and that is going to be all she wrote. GG's, and thanks for playing. Heading into the next battle. Uncle Agastine leads Shadow Jumpluff into a Lowland Sandslash. That is a huge yikes moment. We're going to say switch into Lapras, baiting out Kanto Marowak. I think switch advantage in this matchup is going to be very important. If you're going to run a Lowland Sandslash, much like Scizor, something double weak to fire, you're definitely going to have 2 fire type counters in the back. Marowak pretty decent into fire types, at least fire types that don't fly, so they've likely got a water type in the back that Talonflame certainly doesn't want to see. Although hold that thought, the opponent has double shielded their Marowak in this mid-game matchup, meaning if they've got a water type in the back, they're still going to get nuked the shit out of by the incoming Brave Bird. I really do hate Marowak. I think it's such a nonsense, one-dimensional Pokemon. People just tap, 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 mud slap, mud slap, mud slap, force alignment, but how did that work out for your trainer? Clearly not very well. They send out Gastrodon, recognise they're going to get Brave Bird into the face, they don't want the smoke, and they concede the match. Apologies for the mad tangent. Heading into the next battle. Uh-oh, we've found trouble. Clodsire is going to be a huge problem for us, especially if they're the Stone Edge variant. Uncle Agostine stays in, fires off the Acrobatics. Acrobatics hits hard, but Clodsire has like 10 bazillion HP. This Clodsire is actually the Sludge Bomb variant, which means our backline has got a lot more play into it. Both Pokemon, even the Glassy Shadow Talonflame, can tank one Sludge Bomb. We attempt the Sludge Bomb catch onto Lapras, catch attempt unsuccessful, and out comes Greninja. Lapras looks to fire off the Skull Bash, but unfortunately loses CMP, but Lapras holds strong, tanking the second Night Slash, returns fire with the Skull Bash. Skull Bash, a clean one-hit KO. Out comes Gator, and off this energy lead is very scary. A Jumpluff is certainly in Hydro Cannon range. However, the opponent continued to farm up, allowing us to reach the Acrobatics. Acrobatics forces the first protection, and the opponent does look to dump some energy. Despite having 2 Protect Shields to hide behind, Talonflame's very quickly going to burn through them shields. As of course, a Hydro Cannon will probably knock out this Talonflame, and every Talonflame that's ever entered the Go Battle League, and even a Sludge Bomb, does like 75% of our HP. Another factor that we need to take into account is every single Shadow Claw the opponent lands, we're getting closer and closer to Sludge Bomb range. We fire off one Incinerate and the Fly for optimal fast move time, and the opponent then pivots out into Clodsire, looking to go for the wham bam combo play. Are we in Sludge Bomb range? Not quite, but we look for the double up. Unfortunately, unable to get it. The opponent able to Poison Sting farm down, and that one does end in heartbreaking defeat. In the next battle, we see a classic game of chicken. This matchup really does require a big set of balls. The opponent probably hoping we're not on Energy Ball, and likewise, we're probably hoping the opponent isn't on Ice Beam. We're able to sneak the Energy Ball through 2 Protect Shields, instantly rocking this Lapras into the red health range. The opponent return fire with the Skull Bash. Jumpluff absorbs the damage, looks to fire off the Acrobatics, removing Lapras from the field of play. Down goes Lapras. The opponent sends out a Azumarill. Jumpluff still not done. Gonna fire off the Energy Ball, and Energy Ball is going to leave a very solid dent in Azumarill's never-ending HP. Energy Ball able to land. The opponent looks for the bubble farm down. Jumpluff absolutely popping off. Will not be denied. Reaches the next Energy Ball, forcing the first protection of the game. Azumarill does leave absolutely loaded, but the energy doesn't really go too many places into bulky Lapras. The opponent recognise it, bank the energy, make the pivot into Moltres, and here comes the Kentucky Fried Chicken Bird of Death. We invest the Protect Shield, blocking up the incoming Fly before looking to return fire with our own Fly. Fly removes Moltres from the field of play. Back out comes Azumarill. Azumarill looks to dump some energy. Ice Beam doesn't get the job done. Talonflame able to hang on, reach the Fly. Fly goes unshielded. The opponent recognises they cannot win the match, and we take that game. Heading into the next battle. What a beautiful lead. Jumpluff into Marowak. The opponent say no thank you. Say switch into Fortress, and this Fortress is very quickly about to get deleted. It's quite interesting to see this matchup, because every single Fortress I've seen, I've cooked in 3 Incinerates. However, that Fortress is actually able to hang on, so potentially mine's got some kind of Incinerate breakpoint. Back out comes Marowak. Marowak gets rocked with the Brave Bird. Brave Bird isn't quite lethal, but that's probably better for us as it feeds us yet further energy. Out comes Lapras. Lapras gets greeted with the Fly. We reset up debuff, enter the mirror. The opponent's like, you've got me. They concede the match, and we take that game. Talonflame completely stealing the show in that last battle. I think the last Rocket event was an absolute joke. I actually had the entire week off, and it took me like probably a combination of like 30 hours of grinding bloody grunts to get a decent enough Talonflame to invest in for the Great League. I think they need to do something about these Rocket events. The new Pokemon are so bloody hard to obtain. That's today's rant out of the way. Uncle Agostine has found himself a problem in this battle. We are triple weak to rock, and we are staring at a Cradilly. But the combination of Jumpluff and Lapras able to bully its way through it, but out comes Talonflame, and Talonflame with an energy lead is a very scary Pokemon to face. Where's Dr. Tap Tap, aka Bastion or Wallface when you need it? We send out our own Talonflame, but we are so far behind on energy. We invest a Protect Shield, blocking up the fly. Uncle Agustin looks to return fire with his own fly, and this will certainly force the opponent's first Protect Shield. The opponent looked to fire off the next fly, and we very quickly found ourselves all shields down. Uncle Agustin farms up, looks to go for the catch. The opponent has the same idea. Send out Jellicent. Jumpluff gonna reach the energy ball. We really need this to knock out, but I don't think it will. It does not. The opponent able to hex farm us down, leaving with the serve, and serve gonna be all she wrote. GG's to that opponent. Heading into the next battle. Beautiful lead as Jumpluff stares down the Angry Ape, although in fairness I think you need to be a Shadow Annihilate to merit or justify that angry nickname. The opponent says no thank you, say switch into Furret. It looks like Uncle Agustin more than content to stay in. We absorb the swift, return fire with the acrobatics. Acrobatics forces the first protection and make the pivot into Lapras. Even if the opponent falls on a Trailblaze here, which I'm anticipating them doing, it's non-stab and one is survivable. You can see Uncle Agustin looking for the kill shot, going to full send the Skull Bash, looking to move Furret from the field of play. The opponent go all in on Furret. However, they've now got no Protect Shield to hide behind. The opponent probably hoping if they can flip this matchup, Annihilate's going to be good against what's in the back. But unfortunately for them, we're actually running a crazy ABA flying strategy. We saw Jumpluff return to the arena just to operate as the damage sponge. The opponent fire off back-to-back swifts, removing Jumpluff from the field of play. And here comes Talonflame. The opponent throws at really poor timing. Talonflame goes to the one shield. Full Incinerate farm down. I believe that's a Drapion on the back. I'm not quite sure, but we're very quickly about to see it return to our screen as Fly easily picks up the one-hit KO. Back out comes Drapion. Talonflame with that Brave Bird locked. Unloaded. Brave Bird actually doesn't quite one-hit KO, but the next Incinerate knocks out Drapion, and we return to winning ways. GG's. In the next battle, we see Jumpluff into the Big Fat Bunny, another matchup where Energy Ball is very advantageous. The opponent can survive 2 acrobatics, however they cannot survive 2 energy balls. You see the first energy ball instantly puts them below the half health mark. The opponent farms up a boatload of energy. Are we about to get hyper beamed? Oh my days, that was a hyper beam indeed. But Jumpluff shrugged off the damage, returned fire with the next energy ball and still able to win that zero shield scenario. Quite surprised to see Uncle Agustin not say switch into Lapras, instead opting to concede a farm down. But I guess his thought process is that he wants to get Talonflame into a positive matchup, as of course fire does resist Fairy. The opponent ends up throwing on alignment, giving Talonflame a full free Incinerate. Talonflame farms up to 100 energy, unleashes the Fly, even debuff Fly, removes the annoying Marshmallow from the field of play, and out comes Annihilate. The opponent needs to full send a close combat to knock us out, but they don't have the energy, it's just a Rage Fist. Uncle Agustin recognises Lapras, far too thick, far too bulky. Rage Fist simply doesn't cut it. Sparkle Aria forces the opponent's first Protect Shield. Talonflame re-enters the arena. Once again, very nice fast move timing. One Incinerate and the first Fly. One further Incinerate and the next Fly. And Talonflame once again gonna clean up. GG's and thanks for playing. Heading into the next battle. We see Jumpluff into Giratina. The opponent pivots into Galarian Weezing. Again, the opponent throws at really poor timing. I was going to say this isn't the best matchup for us. However, after sneaking a free Incinerate, it's certainly become a lot more manageable. Just the Incinerate damage alone has absolutely torn through the opponent's HP. As I was saying previously, this isn't the most comfortable matchup. You can see that Sludge almost picked up a one-hit KO. However, hold that fort, Brave Bird! No! I don't know why I do it to myself. On what planet was Talonflame? I'm not going to shield that. The opponent tries for a Sparkle Aria catch onto Giratina. Uncle Agustin not falling for any of that nonsense. Banks the Sparkle Aria, makes the pivot back into the Cotton Ball. I really like this overfarm for Uncle Agustin. He's doing 2 things here. Trying to leave a minimal farm for the returning Talonflame. And also leave as much energy he physically can to either force the energy of Talonflame or force the final protection with the acrobatics. Back out comes Talonflame. Jumpluff fires off the acrobatics. Acrobatics gets no respect. They're definitely in 4 Psywave range, or even 5. They're only going to reach 1 move. We shield up the Flame Charge bait, but no bait. We'll be saving Talonflame's fate, and we take that game. In the next battle, we see our nemesis, Cradilly, once again. To be honest, Bastiodon's probably our nemesis. We haven't seen a Bastiodon yet. We have seen a Cradilly, and it provided us all kinds of problems. Uncle Agustin tanks the Rock Tomb, returns fire with the acrobatics, and I guess we're going to pivot back out into Lapras. The opponent actually invests in early Protect Shield, and that's probably worse for us, especially with no Ice Beam. Sparkling Aria isn't debuffed, but only hits for neutral, and doesn't really put him in farm down range either. Once again, we see Cradilly starting to run for our team. The opponent saves Cradilly, make the pivot into Azumarill looking for the bubble farm down, but unable to achieve it before Lapras fires off the departing Skull Bash, and Skull Bash puts them into around the half health range. That's definitely Energy Ball range, but the opponent has got an energy lead, and they will outpace to an Ice Beam. This is such a tough spot. I think we're kind of obliged to shield here. Uncle Agustin opts for the no shield, but the bubble damage is just going to do too much. You can see the bubbles starting to tear through our HP, and Azumarill even able to outpace to the Ice Beam. Uncle Agustin goes for good timing, 1 Incinerate and the Fly. It'll be heartbreaking if the opponent shields. Thankfully, they do let it go, giving us a fighting chance. Back out comes Cradilly. We look to fire off the Fly, but the opponent makes the Fly catch onto their own Talonflame, and I think at this point we're just in danger of getting fast move beat down. The opponent still has a shield to hide behind as well. Uncle Agustin farms up to the double Fly, but I think the opponent can shield that Incinerate that snuck will be knocking us out, and unfortunately this one does end in heartbreaking defeat. GG's to that opponent. Of course, I could end the video there as we've already seen 2 sets, but I know some of you prefer the longer shoutcast, so here I am attempting to use Uncle Agustin's team myself. I don't actually watch battles before I shoutcast, so I have no idea how this team works. We just headed to battle and essentially hope for the best. In my first battle using the team, I really can't complain as I led Jumpluff into Gliscopod. The opponent say switched into the Big Fat Bunny and unfortunately did respect my energy ball. They farm up a boatload of energy. I thought I was about to get beamed, but thankfully it is just a Fire Punch. The opponent pauses a turn, ensuring the next Fire Punch lands on its intended target, but Jumpluff able to shrug off the damage. Fire off yet another energy ball, this time is able to land, and I pivot into Talonflame, looking to load up on energy. The opponent's switch timer is up, so they pivot back out into Gliscopod, but I've got a 2-to-1 shield advantage. I'm more than happy to invest a Protect Shield, blocking up the incoming Aqua Jet. If you're wondering why I'm running Flame Charge and not Brave Bird, like Uncle Agustin, I am so broke on TMs, and the new season is around the corner. I am not wasting TMs. My opponent's actually also a man of culture, running their own Shadow Talonflame, but boosted with an energy lead. The opponent recognised the game's over and they concede the match. Well, the first battle went well, and in the second battle we found a problem. Dunsparce, who runs Dunsparce in Season 23? Thankfully, rollout was nerfed before Blastoise received it, meaning these super effective rollouts aren't doing too much, and thankfully, Rock Slide hasn't been buffed yet. I'm able to survive the next Rock Slide. Am I able to survive the next rollout? It looks like the opponent lagged a turn there. I probably shouldn't have got off this charge move, but it is what it is. This game is not competitive. We're able to knock them out. I pivot into Lapras, and out comes the Angry Ape. Lapras wastes no time, fires off the Sparkling Aria. Sparkling Aria forces the protection. The opponent looks to fire off their energy instantly. This is more than fine for me. Rage Fist isn't lethal, but the opponent only gets 2 counters, and this looks like a very nice Incinerate farm down for the Kentucky Fried Chicken, Bird of Death in its glorious shadow form. The opponent opts to stay in, looking to force Protect Shield back with the boosted Rage Fist, and I am more than happy to oblige as Shadow Talonflame is so bloody glassy. Out comes Shadow Gligar, and unfortunately this is just game over. I fire off the Flame Charge, the opponent tanked the damage, and that's just it. This is the last charge move they're going to reach, so I may as well shield. I just got to fire off 1 further Incinerate, knock out Gligar, and I'm able to take that game. Heading into the next battle, we see Shadow and Shadow Crime are very much in my opponent's favour, and an awful lead for me. We say switch into Lapras. The opponent looked for some chipping of action before likely looking to catch a Sparkling Aria, or just say switching into something else. Out comes Primeape. Primeape probably going to shield this, as Primeape users love to shield everything. The opponent does exactly that. They don't even commit to the farm down there. They opt to fire off the Rage Fist, boosting up their attack. Most Primeape run Ice Punch. It's not like I'm unaware I'm about to get Ice Punch to the face, but I think I'm just going to 2-shield Talonflame and pray it can sweep the back line. My thought process was that Jumpluff's dead weight when I've lost switch advantage is just going to be stuck against that Shadow Canto Ninetales anyway. I send out Talonflame, go for the one shield, Incinerate farm down, out comes Azumarill. I'm able to fire off one Incinerate and the Fly, but this is not looking good for me whatsoever. Although wait, has the opponent give me a win con? I'm getting so low by over farm as much as I physically can, fire off the Fly, on the charge attack priority, back out comes Azumarill, I fire off one Incinerate and the next Fly. Fly, force the Protect Shield, can we survive the bubbles? Reach the next Fly. The game looked like it stuttered, thought about giving me DRE, and it's like, Jamie Thing, you trash talking prick, not today trainer, and I do end in defeat. Heading into the next battle. Things aren't looking much better for me, as this time Jumpluff stares down Talonflame. Give me a break, man. I say switch into Lapras, and the opponent sends out Shadow Gallade. I'm really being trolled here. But on a more serious note, this is actually the worst spot to be in. I've got a shield advantage, and I can just reverse farm this Gallade down for all the energy in the world, as what the heck they're going to throw at me. I doubt they've got Synchronoise. They're probably on Close Combat and Leaf Blade, and all moves are resisted. The opponent recognises that energy isn't going to go anywhere, opt to pivot out into Cradiddy. Jumpluff fires off the Acrobatics. Acrobatics certainly puts them into Flame Charge range. I pivot out into Talonflame. Unfortunately for me, the opponent throws on 10, so I have to throw one Incinerate and the Charge move. If the Incinerate doesn't knock out, which it does not. However, we do manage to knock out Cradiddy, and we return our attack back to neutral. The opponent pivots back out into Talonflame. They actually get one turn bring in, which is heartbreaking for them, but definitely great for me. I attempt to make the catch onto Jumpluff. The opponent has the same idea, trying to catch onto Gallade. Jumpluff re-enters the arena. The opponent once again fire off the Leaf Blade. We leave with the Acrobatics. I guess the safest play is just shield this move up, as I've already hit my charge move, and they've certainly found themselves in a range where Jumpluff is a Talonflame counter confirmed, and I'm able to take that game. Heading into the next battle, we see Gligar in the lead position. Not a great matchup, but objectively better than the two fire types or Dunsparce we've seen previously. However, regardless, I've got two better responses in the back, so I say switch into Lapras, baiting out Big Man Blastoise. Unfortunately, unable to land the Skull Bash, it bounces off the Protect Shield. I recognise I'm able to survive this Skull Bash. I thought, do I reach the next Skull Bash? I chicken out. But I think in reality I would have got there, but thankfully the opponent wasn't counting particularly well and shielded up a Sparkling Aria when they really didn't need to, especially if I buffed up defence. I send back out Jumpluff. I think here I should shield the first move. I'm going to get Skull Bash to the face, and now I'm going to be forced to shield a Hydro Cannon. That is definitely a potato play on my part. I think in the moment I was like, we're just going to two-shield Talonflame, and then I was like, actually, that's probably not the best idea, as this Blastoise is two-stage boosted, and they'll probably roll out farm me down before we Incinerate farm them down. However, I'm able to knock out Blastoise. We send out Talonflame with a shield advantage. The opponent reveals their own Talonflame, and my Talonflame is looking primed to sweep. Wow, I said Talonflame a lot there. Back out comes Gligar. Gligar going to be greeted with the Flame Charge. Flame Charge isn't lethal, but likewise, Aerial Ace simply won't cut it. The Talonflame is going to be two Incinerates off the Fly. At this stage, I'm only one off. A boosted Fly, going to knock out Gligar. When the opposing Talonflame re-enters the arena, have no doubt, a boosted Shadow Fly is going to be all she wrote. GG's, and thanks for playing. And that is just about going to wrap things up for today's Shoutcast. So I think it's fair to say Jumpluff are still going to have some play next season, but arguably, as always, Shadow Talonflame has stolen the show. This thing is bloody fun, man. I used to hate Talonflame, but now it's released in its shadow form. I'm very much enjoying using it. So if you're enjoying the content, smash that like button. If you're new, consider subscribing. If you'd like your battles featured on my channel, a link to my battles feature form is down below. And as always, a huge thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.